welcome back. Now, I'm Ted Thomas, and I've been involved in real estate for the past 30 years. I'm sure you've already noticed everyone wants to own a piece of the United States. So in today's episode, it's going to be a discussion on how to buy land in Georgia. Now, later in the episode, I'm going to reveal to you how to buy tax-defaulted land in Georgia for pennies on the dollar. Now, there's lots to learn. You can start with raw land, buying or selling. Or maybe you prefer to do developable land, or raw land, which is very creative, but I can tell you it's very expensive and it's got high risk. The point, of course, is there's lots of opportunity in small parcels and there's large parcels, so you can decide which one you want. But you don't want to just buy in the hopes that it's going to work out. You need to have an exit strategy before you do anything. So if you want to buy in a subdivision, you're going to find out there's not too much raw land in subdivisions. However, if you want to buy land outside the subdivisions, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Some people want to live out there where there's open landscape. They don't want to have neighbors close in. So this episode is how to buy land in Georgia. Now, the Department of Agriculture has created significant information on land. So if you want to know about land, they've got all the basics there. How to measure it. They're going to tell you how to find out if it's water. What about the soil? What about what kind of land is it? Is it soil that you can cultivate and grow vegetables on? Is it land can only be used as pasture land? What is it? So I'd start with the Department of Agriculture, getting to know what they got and what's available. But Georgia is loaded with properties because it is a rural state. Now, due to the high inflation past few years, what's starting to happen is we're starting to see those land values are starting to go up. So whatever numbers that you get, whether you're getting it from the Department of Agriculture or you're getting it from the multiple listing system, wherever you're getting it, you need to start doing your homework and checking with comparables in the area. So you must be able to compare these different properties. If you don't compare them, you won't have the right value on the property. Different types of land have different value. Cultivated property is much different than timberland. Timberland is a lot different than having pasture land. I'm sure you've already figured all that out, but the point is you don't want to just buy and hope the whole thing is going to work. Now, no matter what the Department of Agriculture says, you need to check the comparables because who knows when that data was printed or how old it is. Now, many of the properties will have trees on them. Well, if they got trees on them, sometimes the farmer has sold the trees as timber to a timber company. So you need to check on that before you buy what's already on the land. The same thing happens with crops that are on the land. The crop might already be sold to somebody else. You're just buying the land. So you need to check into that. So you're gonna have to think about that. Now, if you're going to buy range land where you're going to graze cattle and things like that, you need to know that that's all that land is good for before you start trying to figure out the pricing. The pricing will be a lot lower than it would be for irrigated land or land that you could grow tomatoes or you could grow strawberries on. It's going to be quite a bit different. Now, land has a lot of different values. Location, of course, is always important. But think about it. Pasture land is just that. It's just good for grazing. But what about cultivated land? That could be good for many different kinds of crops. So do you know how to do a soil test? Do you know how to get someone that's going to do that? What I'm talking about here is a whole new ballgame. If you've been buying in urban areas, well, what's happened is the developer has already taken all the risk out of it. Why? Because they've already put the easements, they've done the restrictions, put the roads down. If you're buying land, do you need utilities? Are you going to need electricity to pump the water back and forth? What are you going to need on this land? Are you going to need well water? Well, then how deep do the wells have to be? So the point is, you need to compare apples with apples. Don't try to do all this yourself. You need to get someone that really knows what they're talking about. So don't just get a real estate broker. Get one that specializes in land. If they don't specialize in land, forget it. They might be trying to sell you irrigated land and you want timberland. I mean, you don't know what you're doing business with, so you need to figure all that out ahead of time. So get a broker that knows land and knows what the value of land. Some people want land that's just open and it's clear. Other people want range land. Other people want land with small mountains on it. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. So they need to take all that into account. Another thing you have to take into account is, are you buying this property from the landowner, or are you bringing cash to the table? That could cost two different prices. It's one price if the landowner sells it to you, it's another price if you're paying cash. Point here is assessing the land is a bit of a challenge, and also assessing the deal is a bit of a challenge. It's going to make a lot of difference whether you're paying cash or whether you're asking the person to finance you through the whole process. All right, so later on in this lesson, I'm going to talk to you about tax defaulted land. Now, what is that? Well, that's land where people haven't paid the tax, and now the local government, the county, has said, you didn't pay the tax, so they levy it, then they try to collect on it. If they can't collect on it, they're going to kick you off that land, they're going to confiscate it, and they're going to sell it at a public auction. Now, when they sell it, they give a 60, 70, 80% discount. So they're going to discount it way down, and the treasurer is going to knock the mortgage off. In other words, they're going to cancel the mortgage. They're going to wipe it out. So here there's property selling at tax defaulted auction that are land, and the properties could be sold for 60%, 70%, even 80% less than other properties in that area, all because the county just wants to discount it down and get rid of it. All right, all that land has to be checked by you. You need to know, is the soil any good? What's good and what's bad? You need to know where the utilities are. You need to know where the water is. You need to know, are you going to have to bring water 10 miles to have water on that land? You have to figure all that stuff out yourself. So this episode is all about buying land, okay? Now, buying land is a challenge, and don't do it alone. Find an expert, find people that have done it before, talk to all the neighbors that are there. You need to know a lot more than you would if you're just buying a property that's a single-family home, because a single-family home has everything there. The water's there, the sewer's there, utilities are there, the property lines are there. If you're buying land, you've got to get it surveyed. How are you going to know what you're buying? Well, you go out there and look at it. What are you going to buy? I'm going to buy over to that tree and then over to that big rock? Well, they don't do that anymore. You have to have surveys. You have to know exactly what you're getting. All right, so it doesn't matter whether you're buying it at a tax defaulted auction or whether you're buying it on your own. You're going to have to, if you're going to buy land, you're going to have to figure those things out ahead of it. All right, so what is your expected outcome in this land? What do you want to do with it? Do you want to buy it just to hold it and sell it quickly? Do you want to subdivide it? Well, is it subdividable? In other words, is it land that the county will approve that? They might not approve it. All right, what if it doesn't have roads to it? So if you're buying to sell quickly, you have to have all these things already there. If the water isn't there and the utilities aren't there and the roads are not there, you're not going to be able to sell that property. You're going to have a heck of a time. But if the roads are there and the utility and the water and it's already subdivided, that's another whole ballgame. All right, so what happens is people go in and they start these projects, and unfortunately they use up all their money. They don't have anything left, so they don't pay the tax. Now these properties come up for tax defaulted auctions. Wow. Now what does the county do? Well, the county confiscates those property for non-payment of taxes. All right? So if you've already figured everything out, and you've got a survey, and you've got the easements, and you know the restrictions, well, now you could buy one of these properties at a 60, 70, or 80% discount at the tax defaulted auction. What kind of great deal is that? Now, when you buy at the auction, the auctioneer, the treasurer, actually cancels the mortgage or deed of trust loan. So now you're getting a property for maybe 10, 20 cents on the dollar with no loan on it. Well, that's going to give you a hell of an advantage when it comes to selling it. However, have you already figured out what's the best use of the property? So people don't want to live next to the cows. So if you've got all the land that you bought is only good for pasture land and it can't be developed, you got to think about that. Or what about the land that you're buying? Is it going to be agricultural? What kind of agriculture? Are you going to put corn on there? Are you going to put things that have to be irrigated? I don't know. What kind of soil is it? Someone's going to have to figure that out. So the common question always is, what's the price per acre? Well, I defy you to tell me what the answer is, because you have to know what kind of land it is, what kind of soil it is. So pasture land obviously is cheap. Irrigated land is obviously expensive. All right, brokers can tell you that. So you want to make sure you have a broker. Well, let's go back to these tax defaulted property. Local governments want to get rid of the property. So they're going to discount it 60, 70, 80%. You can buy these properties for pennies on the dollar. You're buying them directly from the government. What you do with it is up to you. So if you could buy a property for, say, $1,500, and then you could turn around and sell it for whatever you want. I have clients do that. They buy a property $1,500, and then they sell it for $15,000. Well, but maybe it was 13 or 15 acres. Well, think of the difference. Think of the margin you had. If you bought it for $1,500 and it was worth as much as $15,000, well, maybe you get some selling costs in there, whatever, but you're certainly going to have a great margin to be able to make yourself. And there'll be plenty of profits because the margin is so big between the purchase price and the price that the land will bring when you sell it to another buyer. Now, my name is Ted Thomas. Right below me, if you're interested in this kind of business, you can get a sample auction list. Just go right below me and request a sample auction list. I'm Ted Thomas.